We know that all things are made up of molecules and that these molecules are in constant motion. Diffusion is defined as the movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Drops of a green dye are placed into a glass of water. As the dye enters the water, it represents the area of high concentration of the dye, and the water, where it is still clear, represents the area of low concentration in reference to the dye. Over time, the molecules of the green dye, which represents the area of high concentration, will move or diffuse through the water, the area of low concentration, until the molecules of the green dye are equally distributed throughout the water. Even though the water molecules and green dye are still moving, the green dye will remain equally distributed in the water. When this happens, the term that describes this equal distribution of molecules is called equilibrium. Again, diffusion is the movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. This process occurs naturally and does not require energy, which is called passive transport. When the two areas of different concentration are separated by a selectively permeable membrane, it is said that a concentration gradient exists. We know that molecules diffuse from high to low. This movement from high to low is called moving down the concentration gradient. The membrane is selectively permeable, meaning that it allows certain types and sizes of molecules to pass through it. Here is an illustration of an area of high concentration separated by a selectively permeable membrane from an area of low concentration. Again, over time, the molecules will move from high to low until equilibrium is reached. Osmosis is the diffusion of water. When discussing osmosis, we are always concerned with the movement of water molecules. Everything is in reference to the water. The left side of this illustration has more water, fewer particles. In reference to the water, we have a high concentration of water on this left side. Diffusion moves from high to low. The diffusion of water, osmosis, will occur and the water molecules will move from high to low. In this illustration, they will move from left to right until the concentration of water is equal on both sides of the membrane. Equilibrium. Osmosis is the diffusion of water and is constantly occurring in all of the cells of our body. When the cells are in an isotonic environment, this means that the concentration of water inside of the cell is equal to the concentration of water outside of the cell. Water will flow into and out of our cells at a constant rate, and this will not affect the size of the cells. When cells are in a hypotonic environment, this means the concentration of water outside of the cell is greater than the concentration of water inside of the cell. When this situation exists, water will move into the cell until the concentration of water outside of the cell is equal to the concentration inside the cell. Because more water is moving into the cell will become swollen and larger, and in some cases, the cells will burst. The opposite of hypotonic is hypertonic. When cells are in a hypertonic environment, this means the concentration of water inside of the cell is greater than the concentration of water outside of the cell. In a hypertonic environment, water will move out of the cell until the concentration of water inside of the cell is equal to the concentration of water outside of the cell. Because water is moving out of the cell will shrink. This picture shows what happens to blood cells when placed in the three types of environments that we discussed in the previous slide. As you can see, blood cells in an isotonic environment, the water moves into and out of the cell at the same rate. The blood cell in the hypertonic environment, water is moving out of the cell faster than moving into the cell. The blood cell in the hypotonic environment, more water is moving into the cell. When cells are in any of these three different types of environment, the direction of movement of water can definitely have a physical effect on the shape and size of the cell. If you were stranded on an island, you should not drink the seawater. The seawater, because it contains salt, is less concentrated in reference to the water, than the water in the cells of your body. If you drank seawater, you will cause your cells to become in a hypertonic environment. The water in your cells would diffuse out, causing them to shrink. You would become further dehydrated and eventually die. The end.